Hey guys, it's Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Today I'm going to be doing the AuthorTube Newbie Tag. So I was tagged for this by the wonderful Bethany Atazadeh and I will link to her channel down below. She gives great advice and you should definitely check out her channel and her social media. I'm going to leave that down below in the description box, so definitely go give her a follow and subscribe to her channel. Basically, the AuthorTube Newbie Tag is exactly what it sounds like. It's a video that you make whenever you're kind of new to AuthorTube, and it's just like an introduction of you and what your channel's about and you as a writer. And even though I've had my channel for a little while now, it's not like I have like a wildly huge platform or anything, and I am still relatively new in the sense that I don't have like hundreds of videos yet or anything like that. And even if I did, I probably would still do this tag because it just sounds really fun and it's gonna allow me to answer some questions that I don't think I've ever talked about on my channel before. So I'm really excited to jump in and get started, and thank you again to Bethany for tagging me. So the first question for this tag is, how did you find out about AuthorTube? So I actually found out about AuthorTube through Kim Chance, and this was back before we were friends, back before I knew her or knew about her. I was looking for videos about authors who were talking about how they got their literary agent, because at that point I was querying, I believe it was the first round of my book What Lies Above, and so I was looking for stories about how authors got their agents. So I was looking for some on YouTube and I found the one that Kim Chance made and I really enjoyed it. And on the like sidebar of YouTube where it says like recommended and related videos, I saw her other writing videos and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I didn't really know that this existed. And so I clicked on one of her writing videos and then I realized that she had a whole channel full of writing advice. And then from there I realized that lots of people had lots of channels about writing and books and just all of the things that I absolutely loved. And so that's how I got introduced to BookTube and to AuthorTube, which I think is really interesting because now Kim and I are friends. So it's kind of funny to see like the progression of, she was the one who introduced me to AuthorTube unknowingly really on her part, and now we both are AuthorTubers and we're both friends, and I think that's just a really special relationship and a really unique way that I kind of found out about AuthorTube. Alright, so question number 2 is, what genres do you write in? So I write young adult, science fiction, and fantasy, and I'm pretty sure that that's all I'll probably ever write in terms of young adult. I'm really not into contemporary. There's some amazing contemporary books out there. I personally only happen to own one young adult contemporary book, which is The Fault in Our Stars right there. So I do not own that many contemporary. I don't really read that much contemporary either, and I just don't think that it's my strength in terms of what I can write. However, I'm not gonna like isolate myself on any potential genres if I want to try them out in the future, but fantasy and science fiction are definitely my favorite genres and the ones that I'm really passionate about writing in. I also really do love to write picture books, which is something that I am considering pursuing in the future more seriously. I have queried several picture books in the past and nothing came out of that, but I was much younger. This was like several years ago, and so I wasn't as serious about writing and publishing as I am right now, and as serious about my writing career. So I would really be interested to opening up to publishing some picture books in the future, but for right now I am pursuing publication for my young adult book, What Lies Above, and that's kind of the path that I'm really working towards, is to publish a young adult book first. Alright, question number 3 is, what is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? Okay, so I answered the category 1. It is young adult and some picture books, although that's not really my focus for right now. In terms of, let's see, what was the other part of that question? What is your preferred writing tense? Okay, so I have a very specific writing tense. I really love to write in first person present, and I know some people absolutely dislike this writing tense so much. They just cannot stand being in the reader's head in the exact moment. But for me, I absolutely love it. I think it allows me to be so close to my character, to really capture their voice and feel like I am that character and feel like I am in that story instead of just telling the story. So for me, it really works, and I found that that's what I'm able to write the best in. Now, What Lies Above is actually the second manuscript that I wrote, and so my first book was written in third person past tense, And I think that it worked for that story, but whenever I decided to write What Lies Above in first person present, I just felt like it was like a whole new world of writing, and I was able to really capture my characters' voices. And so now with my third manuscript and with future manuscripts, I plan to write in first person, although I do plan to branch out with one future project and write in the past tense, but it will still be in first person. I just think third person is so hard for me to capture. Some authors can do it wonderfully. I'm just not one of those authors. All right, question number 4 is, are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plantser? So some people call this a plotzer or a plantser. That is what I am. So I'm kind of in the middle, like straddling the line between plotter and pantser. Generally, I lean more heavily towards the pantser side because whenever I get an idea for a book, I used to just jump right in and literally write like the first third to half of the manuscript completely blind. I had no outline. I did not outline anything except like the character names and the city names and a very, very rough like skeleton of the plot. And I would just jump in and be like, I want to see where this story goes, and I would write chapters just kind of off the cuff with no planning whatsoever. And that does actually kind of work. It's a really weird process, but I do often jump into a story and write like a few thousand words and just kind of get into the character's voice and let them lead where the story's going. However, I will then run up against a wall where I have no idea where the story's going, and I have to sit down and plot out like every single detail, every single plot twist, everyone's backstory and character arcs, and then generally I have to go back to the beginning and revise everything to make it fit together. But as I've written more and more manuscripts, I've realized that that process is kind of difficult and irritating and frustrating for me sometimes because I do have to go back and try to rework everything. So now I do tend to plot out a little bit more in the beginning, the like general idea for the plot and the character arcs and the ending and all of that. But in the beginning, when I first started writing, I was 100% a pantser. And now I would say I'm probably more of a plotzer or plantser, however you call it, just because I outline some in the beginning, but I just really, really, really love to let my characters lead, see how their voices kind of unfold and how their story unfolds, and let them direct their story. Question number 5 is, are you a self-published, published, or yet to be published author? So I'm currently querying my second book, What Lies Above. The first book I started when I was 12 and I finished when I was 14, and I did query that book, but it was just not the right project. It will never be published, and it's gonna stay in a drawer, but it taught me so much about writing that I could never have learned without that actual experience of writing and editing and querying a book. There's just something about actually doing it yourself and, you know, doing that work and having that experience that really teaches you so much about writing. With my second book, What Lies Above, I started that one when I was like 16, and then it took me a few years to write and a few years to edit, and now it's taken me a few years to revise again and query, and I've gone through a bunch of different rounds of querying. So the whole writing journey in general, it's been about like 8 or 9 years. With What Lies Above, like I said, I am querying it now, and I've actually gotten some really good feedback, and I'm going to be doing a like life and writing update blog post pretty soon. It will probably actually go up before this video goes up, and I'm going to talk about kind of my querying, what I've been doing, how it's been going, and then some other things like that. I'm also going to be doing a video in the near future about the query trenches and kind of how that's going and how I'm feeling and all of that. But querying right now is going really well. I've had some ups and downs, but overall it's going really well, and I'm really hopeful. So I guess I would be categorized as yet to be published, but I'm definitely hopeful, and I'm definitely on the route towards getting published, hopefully sometime in the near future. And just as a side note, I am pursuing traditional publishing. If you guys aren't sure like what literary agents are and all that, which I was just talking about, literary agents are a part of traditional publication, which leads into the next question, which says, what publishing company, literary agent, or printing company are you represented by or use? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house and or literary agent? So I have kind of like a top 5 in terms of my dream literary agents, and I have queried all of them, and I have not actually heard back from any of my top 5 agents, I don't believe. I've heard back from, I think, like 12 or 13 of the 35 agents that I queried, and none of them yet are my top 5 agents, so that's pretty amazing. I also have some partial requests and some full requests out with agents, and one of the full requests is with an agent that I would absolutely love to work with. I've been in contact with her for a few months, talking about revisions and different things I was doing, and I just think she's an amazing person. However, I don't want to share any names yet since I am querying, but I just kind of wanted to share like in terms of where I'm at with the process and what kind of response I've gotten in terms of my top agents. I will talk about my top publishing houses though, because I do have a few. I think everyone kind of dreams about being published by one of the big five, which is like HarperCollins, Random House, you know, some of the really big publishers that, you know, everyone knows the names of. I think that any of those would be amazing. I think in particular HarperCollins would be an awesome fit. But there is one publishing house in particular, which is actually an imprint, and this is one that my CP Lindsay and I talk about because she has actually been to this publishing house and met with some of the editors, and she's gotten to meet a lot of the people, and she says they're amazing. They also have a really specific niche that they publish in, which is perfect for me, and that imprint is Del Rey, which I believe is an imprint of Penguin Random House. I'm like 90% sure, but I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure they are an imprint of Penguin Random House, and they publish sci-fi and fantasy. So they are actually the ones who publish Red Rising by Pierce Brown, that whole series, and a few other sci-fi fantasy series, and Red Rising is actually one of my comp books for my query and for a few Twitter pitches I've done. So I just think What Lies Above would be a really good fit for that imprint, and that's kind of Lindsay's dream publishing house for What Lies Above to get published at if it ever was going out on submission. For Lindsay, I will say that Del Rey would be one of my top publishing houses just because she has hyped it up so much, and I personally also think it would be a really great fit. Alright, so question number 7 is, what AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? So like I said, I've already had my channel for quite a few months, so I already have videos up, and in general it is a mix of a lot of different things. Although my channel is specifically for writing advice, I also do booktube videos where I talk about books I love, covers, my favorite books. I do tags and challenges and different things like that. Then I also have a few traveling videos because in the recent months I have been traveling, and I decided to share some of my vlogs and packing videos and things like that with you guys because you actually voted and said that you would like to see some travel videos of my adventures abroad. And so I've been showing you guys some of that, and I plan to do that more in the future whenever I'm able to travel. But for the most part, my videos are specifically writing, and I talk about pretty much every stage of the writing process except publication, like after literary agents publication, going out on submission to publishers and stuff like that, just because I haven't been to that stage yet. However, I talk about writing, editing, querying in particular because that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I really want to share with you all because I know the query trenches can be such a dark place to be in, and so that's something that I really love talking about is querying because I have had quite a bit of experience with that. I talk about conferences and different events, just pretty much everything to do with writing and fangirling over lots of my favorite series and booktube videos and traveling. So that is my channel in a nutshell for you guys in terms of what kind of videos you can expect to see while you are here. Alright, question number 8 is, when did you start writing? So I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier in the video. I started my very first serious novel whenever I was 12. Before that, I wrote lots of stories. There was like one story about a mouse that went on a spaceship that I wrote when I was like 6. And so I was just writing as much as I could about everything I could possibly imagine. Lots of woodland creatures and fantastical animals and magical things from a very, very young age. However, when I was 12, and this is a long story for a whole nother video, but basically I read a particular book that just inspired me so much, and whenever I closed that book, I said, I want to do this. I want to write a book that makes people this excited and makes people feel this way about reading. And I did. I sat down at my computer. I had no idea what I was going to write about. I just knew I wanted it to be about a magical necklace, which actually, ironically, I did not plan this, but this is the necklace that really inspired that story, which is funny because I didn't plan this at all. But this is the necklace that kind of inspired that story. I wanted it to be about a magical amulet, and that's what I wrote a story about, and I wrote a whole novel about a magical necklace and a princess, and it was pretty like the most tropey YA novel you could possibly imagine. I put every trope in there, and I thought it was so amazing, and I absolutely love that book to death because again, it taught me so much. Alright, question number 9 is, what was the first story you ever wrote? So I kind of already explained this. It was the book about the magical necklace, which I talked about, and I started it when I was 12 and finished it 2 years later when I was 14, and it was a pretty long book, honestly, for a 12-year-old to write. It was like 90,000 words, around 90,000 words, and for those 2 years when I was writing it, I was so passionate about that story. I lived and breathed my characters and my world and my plot. I remember in particular 2 moments during writing that book. One was when I realized a really good plot twist, or what I thought was a really good plot twist at the moment, and I realized what I wanted to do with it, and I ran into my mom's room. She was sleeping, my parents were sleeping. I ran into their room and woke her up to tell her this plot twist that I had come up with, and kudos to my mom because she was so excited even though I had just woken her up from a deep sleep. She was not even aggravated at all. She was so excited for me that I'd come up with this plot twist, and that was a moment that I remember, the exact moment when I wrote the end on that book for the first time, and that was the first time I had ever written the end on a novel, and I will never forget that feeling. It was like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I don't know, I was just like crying in my room at 14 because I had finished this book I'd spent so long writing. And so that experience, like I said, I will never trade it for anything in the world. It taught me so much, and it made me the writer I am today. I would never ever have been able to write What Lies Above or write my 3rd book if I had not started out with that first book. Even though it was so hard for me to realize that that book would not be published, and even though getting rejection after rejection from agents was so hard, and even though I took 2 years off after that and didn't write anything because I was just so upset, and I just felt like I wasn't going to be a writer because that first book hadn't worked out. Even though all those things happened, I would not trade it, and it made me who I am today as a writer, and I'm so grateful to those first characters and that first book. It will forever have a special place in my heart because of what it taught me in terms of writing and in terms of growing a hard skin and persevering and finding your passion and never giving up on it. Guys, have you noticed that every question so far I've made it into like a very inspirational speech? Just saying. That's happened so far, so I hope that's okay. But as you can tell, a lot of my projects in the past and a lot of my writing journey, I'm very passionate about sharing because, like I said, there have been a lot of ups and downs, and I can pass those things on to you guys and share them with you and hopefully encourage you and help you to keep from making some of the same mistakes that I did in my journey whenever I was first starting out. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying my inspirational speeches. Alright, question number 10 is, what authors have inspired your writing the most? There are 2 in particular that I really want to share about, and then there is a 3rd that I will tell a little story about, but that author in particular has not been very inspirational in terms of like a relationship. However, their book was super inspirational for me in terms of when I started out as a writer, so I will share 3 authors that have been super inspirational to me as a writer. Alright, so the first author that I want to share is Janice Hardy, who is the author of the Shifter series or the Healing Wars trilogy, and this is actually the 2nd book, Blue Fire, and the reason that I'm showing you the 2nd one instead of the 1st one is because of a very special story that goes with this particular book that I want to share with you guys briefly. I have talked about this quite a few times before on my channel, but if you're new to my channel, then you can hear it for the first time because this story and this book and this author is absolutely such an important part of my writing journey. And so let's begin with my story times. Alright, so when I was 13, I went to Janice Hardy's signing. Janice Hardy at that point was my absolute favorite author, and still to this day is, for a very special reason, which I'm going to share. But at that time, she was my favorite author in terms of her books. These were my favorite books. The Shifter had already come out and I'd read it. This book had already come out and I had devoured it. And then the 3rd book, Darkfall, was coming out, and she was on tour for the release of that, and I went and saw her in Georgia at one of her signings at a very small bookstore, which now has actually closed down, which is really sad, but it was this very tiny little bookstore, and there was like maybe 6 people there, and I was one of those 6 people, and I think I counted though for like 50 fans because I was so excited to be there, and I got to sit next to her during her little like signing talk. She had a little talk about her books and a Q&A, and I got to sit next to her, and it was an amazing moment. And afterwards, when she was signing my books, I was telling her that I was currently working on my 1st book, and she was asking me questions and talking to me and talking about her books, and she signed my books with very special messages, and each of them has a different message in it, but this one in particular is the one that is the most special to me, and that's why I'm showing you this book, and I will show you the inscription that she wrote in this book. And it says, to Caitlin, which I don't think you guys can read this, but it says, for Caitlin, a fellow author, Janice Hardy. I had to make sure the words were right. And the fact that my favorite author had called me a fellow author, not like a fellow writer, but a fellow author, and just the fact that she had said a fellow author, meaning that it was like she was putting me on the same level, even though I clearly was, you know, writing my first book and she was already published, was absolutely amazing. And it gave me so much confidence as a young writer writing her first book. I just cannot even explain, and I've told Janice this multiple times, and it's actually really ironic because Janice and I are really good friends now, and she's been so influential not only to motivating me as a writer from this moment at that signing, but just over the years she's looked at my queries. She has been such an encouragement and a motivation in terms of my journey. And so yes, probably my #1 inspirational writer who has been influential to me in terms of me as a writer and in my journey would be Janice Hardy. And I recommend that you read this series because it is amazing, and y'all should definitely check out the Shifter series. So go buy it and read it because it's amazing. Alright, so the second author that I want to talk about is actually the one where it's the book that's more motivating than the author themselves, and that is Ink Death by Cornelia Funk. This book was one of the books that made me want to write my first novel. So I talked earlier in the video about finishing a specific book and closing it and saying, I want to make people feel this way. Well, one of the books that actually did that was The Shifter by Janice Hardy, and then the other book was this book, Ink Death by Cornelia Funk. This was a book in particular that I specifically closed and said, I can do this, I can write a novel. Which back then was a huge feat and a huge thing to have said, because I did not realize that writing a book was so difficult, and in particular that getting a book published was so difficult. But in that moment I said to myself, I'm gonna write a book, I can do this, you know, I have what it takes. And I took that confidence with me to my laptop and I wrote a book over the course of 2 years. And for that I have Ink Death in part to thank for really giving me that motivation, because I loved this trilogy. This is the third book in the Inkheart trilogy, and I loved this story so much that it really motivated me to write my own. Alright, and the third and final author that I want to share with you all is the lovely Kim Chance, who I mentioned earlier introduced me to AuthorTube and who is now one of my dearest writing friends. She's also the author of Keeper, which I recommend that you read if you have not read it already, which is a wonderful book. This is her debut, and just watching her like journey unfold and develop over time has been so amazing. When I found that first video, she had just signed with her literary agent, so I did not know her before that, but since that point I've watched her get a book deal, I've watched the book release, I've watched her now writing her second book, Seeker, and just talking with her and texting with her and, you know, sharing all of these milestones in our journeys, and just the friendship that I have with her has been so amazing. And honestly, I cannot thank Kim enough for being such an amazing friend and just an amazing writer, and such an important part of the writing community and the AuthorTube community. And if you all do not know who Kim Chance is, or you have not watched her videos, definitely go check it out. Her channel is amazing and you will get so much great advice out of it. But just in terms of a friendship and a relationship that's been so special to me and inspirational to me, Kim has been such an amazing friend and has encouraged me so much in my journey. And so she is another inspiration in my journey that I wanted to share with you all. So question number 11, because this video is probably super long by this point, but question number 11 is, do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you can find the time? Okay, so this question I guess is going to unveil me or reveal me or whatever, but I actually don't have a writing schedule, like a very strict writing schedule. I wish that I did, and I am so in awe of people who do have a writing schedule where like they wake up at 6 a.m. and they write for an hour before work or school or whatever. But I actually don't have a writing schedule. I tend to write at night, like really late at night, like between 9 p.m. and, you know, like midnight. I'm a night owl, and that's when I tend to have my like most creative streaks. But in terms of actually like days that I write and times that I write in specific, I don't have a schedule. And that's something that if I, you know, get a literary agent and sell a book, obviously if I'm on deadline, that's something I'll have to do, is actually make a schedule and be disciplined, which I have no problem with doing. It's just that for right now, I tend to just go with when I'm feeling either the most creative or whenever I have free time. Although I will make time to write, it's just that it's not at like a set time every single day. Sometimes it might be in the afternoon if it's like between classes or something like that and I have like an hour free, then I'll write then. I just don't have a set schedule for writing, and sometimes, to be honest, I will go like a week or two if I'm like actually drafting a book, actively drafting one. I will go like a week or two without writing, which I know is terrible, but I'm being honest with you all. I do not have a schedule, and I should probably have one, but I don't. So if y'all don't have a schedule, don't feel bad, because I don't have one either. Question number 12 is, do you type on a computer, a typewriter, write everything out by hand, or use a blend of those, and where do you write in general? Y'all, if any of you write your whole novel out by hand, like in a notebook on paper, you all are amazing or crazy, one of those two. But I cannot imagine writing a whole, like What Lies Above, my manuscript for What Lies Above is like 112,000 words. I cannot imagine writing that many words out by hand. So no, I do not write by hand, and I don't use a typewriter either. I use a laptop. I have my MacBook, and that's what I use to write my book on. Yeah, so I think, where do you write in general? Okay, so I have a chair that sits like over here in the corner of my room that I like to write in. Sometimes I write on the couch. A lot of times I'll write like sitting on my bed, or sometimes at my desk, although I don't sit at my desk a lot when I'm home. And then when I am at college, I'll just write sitting on my bed or wherever really I think is comfy for me. I really like to be like snuggled up with blankets and just to be more comfortable. So I don't have like a specific place, just like I don't have a specific schedule. I don't have a specific place I write. I kind of just go with whatever I'm feeling. Sometimes I'll write outside, like on the deck if it's really nice. Wherever I guess the mood strikes for me to write, that's where I write. And the last question, finally, is question number 13, which is, what are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of AuthorTube? So I'm going to answer this question in terms of what I have seen and what I have been so excited for and really encouraged by in the AuthorTube community, because I have been a part of it for a little while. And that is honestly the community, just like the relationships that I've built from this community, and the AuthorTubers that I've met and the other writers that I've met from being a part of this community has been so amazing. And just being able to share my love for writing and books with you all and have you all interact with me and talk about your favorite books has been so special and amazing. And I just think it's an awesome platform. I did not want to join YouTube. I never thought I would join YouTube, honestly, until I found AuthorTube and a community where I felt like I really fit in, and where I felt like I could share my love for books and writing and have, you know, a platform or an audience that would be receptive to that and also loves books and writing. So those are the things that I think I found to be the most special, is all of the amazing relationships. I mean, like I said, I met Kim Chance through AuthorTube. I've met so many other amazing people that have been such, you know, such amazing supports in my journey, and that I could not imagine not being in my writing life. And so for that, I'm so grateful that I did join AuthorTube and that I'm able to share my passion for books with all of you. Alright everybody, that is all for this tag. I know that this was a super long video. It is like 40 minutes long at this point, so I'm gonna have to edit this down. I don't know how I can edit this down to 20 minutes, but I will try to get it around 20 minutes. So I'm sorry that it's kind of longer, but there was 13 questions, so it was a little bit of a longer tag than normal. But I hope that you guys enjoyed all of my answers and random tangents that I had in this video, and just getting to learn a little bit more about me and what you can find here on my channel, and some of the authors that have inspired me and my writing journey, and just everything that I shared in this video. So hopefully you all enjoyed that. Thank you again, Bethany, so much for tagging me. I had so much fun doing this tag, and I would tag other people. However, I do know that quite a few AuthorTubers have already been tagged for this, and some of them have already done the tag, and all the authors that I would generally tag have already done it. So I'm gonna tag all of you guys. So if any of you want to do this tag, if you are an AuthorTuber and you are interested in doing the AuthorTube Newbie Tag, leave a link down below to your video. I would love to see it and check it out if you decide you want to film this video and answer these questions. I will put the questions in the description box, along with all the links that I mentioned and my social media. If you want to go follow me on Twitter or Facebook or Goodreads or my blog, all of those links will be down below in the description box, so go check those out. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.